Great, thank you. Good morning. Before we begin the public hearing, I want to make the following announcement. Due to the continuing threat to public health from COVID-19 and its variants, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come, and I'm going to ask the clerk, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will please indicate that you are present when your name is called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Driscoll.
Good morning. Good morning, colleagues.
Councilmember Gim.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues.
Councilmember Thomas.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Councilmember Brooks.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Vice Chair Councilman O. Okay. And Councilwoman Gautier.
Good morning, everybody present.
Okay, thank you. A quorum of the committee is present and the hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Public Health and Human Services regarding bill numbers 220-656, 220-664, 220-665, and resolution number 220-858. And I'm going to ask the clerk, would you please read the title of the bills?
Bill number 220656, an ordinance adding a new chapter 6-1400 to the Philadelphia Code entitled Privacy of Certain Health Information to establish privacy protections for information related to reproductive health care, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 220664, an ordinance amending Chapter 9-110 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fair Practices Ordinance, Protections Against Unlawful Discrimination, to protect against discrimination related to reproductive health, modify and harmonize related provisions of the chapter, and make other related or technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions. And Bill number 220665, an ordinance amending Title VI of the Philadelphia Code entitled Health Code, to establish legal protections related to entities or individuals seeking, providing, or assisting others to obtain reproductive services, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. And before we begin, two things, or actually one thing I just want to make note of is that Councilman David O. Has alerted us that he cannot log on. And so he's not able to access Microsoft Teams and participate in today's committee hearing. But I know that he is actively trying to engage and be a part of our hearing. Before we begin the hearing today, I would just like to also let everybody know that we will hear testimony on the bills, recess the public hearing into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on those bills, and then return to a public hearing to hear testimony on the resolution. Before we begin hearing testimony from the witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to recognizing members for their questions or comments that they have for witnesses, I will note that for the record that at this time we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Before I call on the clerk to call forward the first panel, would any of my colleagues like to make any opening comments? Councilman Gim?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, colleagues, thank you so much for your consideration of the Philadelphia Reproductive Freedom Platform, a collection of bills that will put Philadelphia at the front lines of abortion defense. From the moment the Supreme Court ended 50 years of Roe v. Wade, we knew that states and local governments had to act. We are a city with the strongest home rule charter in the Commonwealth, and as such, we retain significant powers to legislate and assert our municipal authority to protect our residents and assure them of their rights and freedoms. We are also a city which has consistently stood up for the lives of Black, Brown, and immigrant women, girls, trans, and pregnant people, and all those who love them, because we know that healthcare access is not equal, and it is thus unjust. And we must work diligently to make sure that those most at risk of denial of care are not those at risk of the criminalization of our bodies. The Supreme Court's decision to overturn 50 years of precedent under Roe has forced us to act. 70 million people currently live in 13 states which have bans on abortions that went into immediate effect this summer. Texas and Idaho have enacted vigilante laws that seek to criminalize the provision or the request for reproductive care, even when that care occurs outside of their jurisdiction, and more could be expected to follow. It's not just about abortions. Under attack is the full range of reproductive health care, birth control, fertility treatments, in vitro, and abortions. Here's our message to governors like Greg Abbott in Texas and anyone else who seeks to criminalize women and believes they can control our city. Not on our watch. This is our city, our residents, and we will do everything within our powers to protect them. And when we lack those powers, we will continue to advocate for people. We will continue to speak out until everyone has full control over their futures and their lives, without politicians seeking to strip them of their rights. And that is what a free city does. That is what a free nation is. And that is how free people ought to live. The last thing patients need is elected officials putting themselves between patients and their doctors. The last thing a young person in crisis needs is politicians who weaponize fear and threats to prevent and discourage them from seeking the care that they need. In a city like ours, where Black and Brown and immigrant and low-income communities have so long borne the brunt of grotesque racial disparities in healthcare and reproductive healthcare in particular. In a city where Black maternal mortality continues to exist, we will and must continue to be the loudest, boldest, and most courageous voice for local action. That's why we immediately began collaborating with our frontline providers and healthcare advocates to develop this reproductive freedoms legislative platform before you today. And I'm proud to have co-introduced it with my wonderful colleagues, Councilmember Kendra Brooks and Councilmember Jamie Gauthier, along with all the women of council as co-sponsors. Earlier this year, Council passed our resolution calling on the city to enact an abortion rights task force and prohibit any local government agency from voluntarily cooperating in an investigation that would criminalize abortion care in Philadelphia. I am confident that Mayor Kenny's administration will commit to doing that work. The bills before us today are the next step. Bill 220656 will prohibit the voluntary sharing of patient healthcare information related to reproductive health in order to protect patients, providers, and others from abusive litigation and harassment, as I had earlier mentioned from other states. If enacted, it will set new standards for healthcare privacy. It is an innovative and creative solution to the next wave of attacks that we expect to come, fueled by new technology against those who seek and provide reproductive healthcare. We hope this will become a model for how patient, provider, and helper data is protected. And it complements the legislation introduced by my colleagues to bring safety and peace of mind to Philadelphians seeking care and anyone who is coming to Philadelphia for treatment. Audre Lorde has said, "I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." We honor Audre Lorde today with our vote, with our actions, and with our voice. I want to thank all of our witnesses for giving us their time, their expertise, and their stories today so all women can be free. And I want to thank my colleagues, the Women of Council, for co-sponsoring this package and for forming a united sisterhood to protect all Philadelphians in these times. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good morning, colleagues, panelists, and everyone listening in today. On the first day of this council session, my colleagues, Councilmember Gim and Councilmember Brooks, and I introduced the Reproductive Freedom Package to protect patients and providers of reproductive health services and to solidify the right to bodily autonomy. We know that reproductive health care services are crucial to the health of all Philadelphians, and the right to seek, provide, and assist in the receipt and provision of these services are secured by Pennsylvania's Constitution and laws. But we cannot expect patients to seek reproductive health care or providers to render these services if they are constantly under threat of legal action or harassment. That's why I introduced the countersuit legislation being considered by this committee today. Vigilante laws criminalizing reproductive health care by permitting parties outside of the city to sue for the receipt or provision of legal reproductive health care in the city of Philadelphia infringes on the rights of patients, providers, and helpers. And as the elected representatives of this city, we cannot stand idly by and let residents in other states control what goes on here in Philly. Laws restricting access to reproductive health care are dangerous because they are also likely to deter people who are or can become pregnant from accessing non-abortion related reproductive health care, putting their health and safety at risk. This is a public health issue. We need to protect the safety of all birthing persons, babies, and children in Philly, regardless of whether they call Philadelphia home, by strengthening their right to privacy when accessing reproductive health care. I want to thank the reproductive health organizations and providers that partnered with us to refine this legislation. We could not have gotten to this point without their expertise and input, and I look forward to hearing their testimony during today's hearing. I also want to thank my colleagues, Council Members Gim and Brooks, for their partnership and leadership on this legislative package, and the Women of Council for co-sponsoring this important legislation. Thank you, Chairwoman Bass, for giving me the floor. I defer back to you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a few comments before, we hear from our panelists about the reproductive freedom package, including my bills to expand the definition of discrimination to include reproductive health autonomy under Chapter 91100 of the Philadelphia Code, known as the Fair Practices Ordinance. When the Dobbs decisions was first announced, the state of abortion rights across the country was thrown into uncertainty, and we knew two things. Abortion would continue no matter what, but safe, legal, accessible abortions everywhere were under threat. While this week's elections results indicate that abortion will likely remain legal in the state of Pennsylvania for the immediate future, the reproductive rights of Philadelphians and those who choose to travel to Philadelphia for care remain under threat. And more specifically, the communities who already face structural barriers when seeking reproductive care remain the most vulnerable to being harmed by these attacks on abortion rights. Poor, working class people, Black and brown women, queer people, immigrants, and people who live and work in settings where reproductive care is stigmatized. Each of these bills, in different ways, keeps in mind the vulnerabilities of these populations and works to ensure that everyone in Philadelphia has the protection they need to safely receive and provide abortion care. My bill specifically would update Philadelphia's anti-discrimination laws to protect reproductive health decisions from workplace discrimination and retaliation. Keep in mind that many women in Philadelphia can't afford to miss a paycheck, let alone risk losing their jobs. With this bill, Philadelphia is demonstrating that we will do everything we can to ensure that someone's decision about their reproductive health cannot be used against them or be grounds for dismissal. As local leaders, we have the responsibility to ensure that no one is punished for making the right decisions for their bodies, their families, and their futures. And lastly, I want to emphasize that reproductive freedom package is a result of rigorous research and stakeholder engagement. And it would not be possible without the expert guidance of abortion providers, reproductive health advocates, and people with firsthand experience. And I want to specifically thank the Women's Law Project, Planned Parenthood of Pennsylvania, New Voices for Reproductive Justice, the Abortion Liberation Fund of PA, ACLU PA, Adrian Gorachi, and Professor Cohen for their partnership in refining this legislation. And with that, I want to thank my colleagues, Council Members Gim and Council Members Gautier for their work on this package. My colleagues who co-sponsored this legislation, and our panelists for being here today. Thank you so much, Chairperson Bass.
Thank you. And we're going to move right into having the clerk call the first panel forward. Madam Clerk, will you please call the first panel of witnesses we have to testify this morning?
Dr. Cheryl Bettigol.
Good morning.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Bass, Vice Chair O, members of the Public Health and Human Services Committee. I'm Dr. Cheryl Bettigol, Commissioner for the Department of Public Health. Thank you for allowing me to testify on bills number 220656 and 220665. Abortion is essential to public health. Evidence shows that access to reproductive health services, including the right to safe abortions, improves health outcomes and supports economic mobility and success. Furthermore, restricting access to abortion services would place the government squarely between a patient and their healthcare provider, denying individuals privacy and autonomy over their own bodies and knowledge to make their own informed healthcare decisions. Extensive research indicates that policies that prohibit or restrict access to abortion expose pregnant individuals to increased psychological distress, significant health risks caused from seeking abortion services outside of the healthcare system, and a higher risk of pregnancy-related complications, including death. This last point needs to be emphasized. There is dangerous rhetoric that a reasonable alternative to having an abortion is to carry a pregnancy and then put the baby up for adoption. This reasoning does not consider that pregnancy itself carries very real health risks that far exceed those of abortion, with an estimated risk of death approximately 14 times higher than that of abortion. In contrast to most nations in the world, maternal mortality has risen in the US in recent years, adding to these concerns. And Philadelphia's pregnancy-related mortality is currently above the national average. Disparities in pregnancy outcomes remain a concern in Philadelphia, with 58% of the pregnancy-associated deaths in the city taking the lives of Black birthing people, who make up 43% of births citywide. Black Philadelphians are 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white Philadelphians. This disparity will only be exacerbated by abortion restrictions, which could limit the ability of a young teen or a woman with complex medical conditions to make her own medical decisions together with her doctor. As a family medicine physician, I have seen firsthand how an unplanned pregnancy can impact people. The decision to have an abortion is difficult and deeply personal. Individuals should have the right to make these informed decisions about their pregnancy with the most up-to-date, medically sound information available. They should have the right to make these decisions in private without government interference or fear of legal consequences. Legislators in states across the country are currently passing laws with the goal of coming between doctors and patients, and that should frighten all of us. When a patient and their healthcare provider talk inside a closed exam room, and when a pregnant person accesses reproductive and other healthcare services based on their often painful and difficult personal choices, those conversations and services must be private. Attempts to take away that privacy or to use it against someone in their place of work, or to take legal action against either the individuals seeking that care or against the healthcare providers who care for them, must be recognized for the privacy intrusions that they are. We also need to understand that the vast majority of the services provided by healthcare facilities that offer abortions are not abortion related. Women go to these facilities for annual gynecologic exams, for birth control counseling and prescriptions, and for a wide variety of healthcare problems. This means that the care at risk goes far beyond abortion care. Will teenagers trying to prevent a pregnancy that could jeopardize their academic and economic futures think again and avoid going to an appointment because they fear their privacy will not be protected? Will women who work for employers with certain political views avoid or delay care for gynecologic problems because they worry that their employer might find out details of their medical conditions? And what will happen if a pregnant woman experiences spotting that could be a sign of an impending miscarriage or placenta previa, a dire complication of pregnancy for which prompt treatment can be life-saving? Will she delay treatment that could have made a difference to her own life or that of her baby because of fear that someone will think she might have attempted to have an abortion? Will doctors be afraid to give appropriate care to these patients for the same reason? These are not theoretical concerns. In places where draconian abortion laws are now in place in our country, doctors and patients are grappling with exactly these questions. As a city, we have a responsibility to our residents to protect them to the extent possible against these risks and to guard the privacy of their medical decisions. Every person has the right to make informed healthcare decisions. This should not exclude people seeking reproductive health care. There are laws being passed across the country that would restrict healthcare providers' ability to provide the most evidence-informed reproductive health options to their patients. This is only exacerbated by the enormous amount of misinformation that exists about abortion. We have a responsibility to provide public health education to improve awareness of trusted abortion and reproductive healthcare options, and on how to identify misinformation about abortion. We must be clear that reproductive healthcare services, including abortion, remain safe, accessible, and legal in Philadelphia. There are many reasons that a pregnant person might feel unable or unwilling to continue a pregnancy. Those reasons are deeply personal and private. It is critical that anyone capable of becoming pregnant has the right to open and honest communication with their healthcare provider and a full range of reproductive healthcare services, including abortion, without fear of legal repercussions. I am grateful to the members of City Council who have taken action to shore up these protections here in Philadelphia. In addition to the protections they offer, these bills make a clear statement to the residents of our city that we value their privacy and right to make decisions about their health in consultation with their healthcare providers and without interference. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Bettengall, and I just want to applaud you for the work that you've done on this issue over the years as someone practicing in medicine, and again, as someone who, as you stated, has really are intimately familiar with the changes that can happen when someone has an unplanned pregnancy and the decision making that has to happen around that. I do think that, it seems many people who do not support a woman's right to choose have either no idea of, the thought, the discussion, the prayer, all the things that go into making a critical decision around the choice that you have. And so protection of that choice is just so very important. And I thank you for the work that you have done over the years. We're going to have our next panelist on this issue, and then we'll have questions from the panel if there are any. Our next panelists.
Dr. Mario DeMarco and David Cohen.
I think we had, hold on. I think from the Office of the Mayor, we had Kia Gee.
Council
Chair
member.
Beth, there have been changes to the agenda for time constraints of the panelists.
Okay, so I need to get, before we proceed, I'd like to get those changes so that I know exactly what I'm doing here. So, Madam Clerk, if you can send me those changes before we proceed so I'll know what I'm doing. If we've made changes, I need to see them. So, while we're waiting for the script, I'm going to, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask Kia to go ahead and get started because I'm not sure what the new order is, but while we're waiting and we have this time, why don't we just
Madam Chair.
have Ms. Kia Gee from the mayor's office proceed?
Madam Chair.
Yes, council member.
Yes, thank you so much. Our apologies, but Dr. DeMarco only has until 11:30 as a practicing physician. And could we just have him go to his testimony for right now? And then I think we can go directly to our city, back to the mayor's administration right afterwards.
Can we hold for 1 second? Because I just, again, since there have been some changes to the order of things, I'd like to see what they are. Because I was not made aware of them. So I need to be aware as the chair. If we could just get a copy of that over to me and then we can have him proceed, but otherwise I need to go by the script as it was prepared.
She can go ahead of me as initially intended.
We'll try to, yeah, Dr. DeMarco, we will certainly try to get you out by 11:30. I don't think, I don't know what Ms. Gee, how long her testimony is. I'm assuming it's less than 10, 11 minutes. So why don't we have her come forward while I'm waiting for that information. Good morning. Can we have you state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony? And if you could condense your testimony, if possible, that would be fantastic.
Yes, I will. Good morning. My name is Kia Gee, and I'll just go ahead and shorten my testimony to get the doctor out of here. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bass and members of City Council, good morning, and thank you for advancing this very important legislation. As I said, my name is Kia Gee, and I am the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations. I am here to express support for this bill, which will protect and expand an individual's fundamental right to reproductive health care and abortion access. It will also provide for reasonable accommodations for those who have medical needs related to the reproductive decisions that they make. As Philadelphia's official civil rights agency, our agency enforces the Fair Practices Ordinance, which is an important set of anti-discrimination laws that would protect all categories, including sex, gender, discrimination, from discrimination and promote equality. Our agency upholds equal protection laws that safeguard the right to autonomy, health, and economic opportunity for all people, including for those who can become pregnant. Reproductive health autonomy allows an individual the ability to control their own life as an equal citizen. Prior to Roe versus Wade, only 11% of women aged 25 through 44 held college degrees. By women, I intend for the term to be inclusive of any individual that is capable of becoming pregnant. According to the YWCA, women often rely on this right to abortion as they are embarking on their educational, career, and personal journeys. When they exercise reproductive health autonomy, they are able to reach their long-term goals, educational attainment, workforce participation, and long-term economic security and health. In the decades since Roe, more than 40% of women aged 25 to 44 hold college degrees, and more women childbearing age have joined the workforce and expanded their careers. In June of 2022, the Supreme Court overturned Roe in a decision that has allowed the state's rights to overrule an individual's right to exercise personal autonomy over their body. In Philadelphia, we recognize that this decision ignores the fact that people, particularly those who are low income, often face dire health and financial consequences when they become parents due to pregnancies that they did not intend to have and nor have the ability to care for. Failure to protect an individual's right and to make their own reproductive health decision will undoubtedly have harmful and inequitable repercussions on people of color, young people, those with low incomes, LGBTQ individuals, those in abusive relationships, as well as people with disabilities. In Philadelphia, this is not just a philosophical dilemma. It is no secret that we are among one of the poorest major cities in the nation, or that women are among those that are entrenched in generational poverty. U.S. Census Bureau figures underscore the fact that deep poverty impacts women disproportionately more than men. In this city, nearly 1 in 4 adults live at or below the poverty line, and female-headed households are 3 times more likely to live in poverty. And this statistic holds across all races. Consequently, as often the default caregivers in families, pressures on women can be pervasive and long-lasting, impacting both their physical and mental health for them and everyone in their household. I speak on behalf of my office, the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations, as well as my colleagues in the administration, to support this bill because it protects a woman's right to exercise her autonomy over her body without fear of unlawful discrimination. Injustice is taking away medical autonomy and stigmatizing those who are already systematically oppressed. The inability to make personal reproductive health decisions has immense social economic effects, particularly for those who are already facing financial difficulties, leading to significantly higher unemployment, bankruptcy, eviction, and court judgments. Failure to protect Philadelphia's pregnant and childbearing population will result in a socioeconomic disadvantage that will threaten this city's potential prosperity.
Ms. Key,
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to summarize if you would.
Yes. I will just end by saying this is the backdrop that Council undoubtedly had to consider when drafting this important legislation. We must continue to fight to make sure that women's rights are protected and that our eye is always on protecting our Philadelphians from discrimination. So thank you for allowing me to briefly testify, and I am available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you for your testimony. And now we're going to bring forward Dr. Mario DeMarco. Dr. DeMarco. There we go. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your flexibility, and thank you to
Absolutely.
the members of the committee that have allowed me to be present here today virtually. It's a privilege to be able to provide this testimony to you this morning about such an important issue. Thank you guys for taking the, yes?
Please state your name for the record and then begin.
Sure. Mario DeMarco, family physician.
And please begin your testimony.
It's a privilege to be here to provide this testimony this morning. I think it's important to take time to discuss and to consider such pivotal issues which affect the health of women and, by extension, our communities. As is Dr. Bedegal, I am also a family physician. I'm a family physician who practices obstetrics. My specialty focus is on maternal child health, which includes a great deal of care and decisions leading into pregnancy and throughout its course. As an obstetrical provider, I also deliver care in the labor and delivery and hospital settings, where I manage low and high-risk pregnancies and deliver babies and take care of families postpartum. I can tell you firsthand that though normative, not all women fare well in pregnancy, and many suffer in their postpartum course. As you've heard today, in the United States, at least 50% of pregnancies are unintended. That number is higher for selected groups, such as teens or women who are recently pregnant. That, of course, does not mean that all of those pregnancies are undesired, but it does speak to the fact that many barriers exist to avoiding pregnancy, even in women for whom pregnancy may represent a grave threat to their own health and well-being. In 2022, I was appointed to the Pennsylvania Maternal Mortality Review Committee. Our work includes the review of each maternal death in the Commonwealth of PA up to 1 year after delivery. We have seen and reviewed countless number of cases where pregnancy was not advised or not desired, but women struggled to find an abortion provider or a provider who could provide services at their gestational age. In one case, a patient went out of state for a pregnancy termination procedure, and the clinic there determined that she had a finding on her uterus called didelphys uteri that prevented the procedure from being done in that clinical setting on that day and was not communicated to any other providers in Pennsylvania. That patient died in her 3rd trimester from a ruptured uterus related to the very condition that was known in her initial scan at that out-of-state visit. Had she had access to reproductive health services closer to home, there is no doubt that she would be alive today. There are a multitude of conditions that we know substantially increase the risk for maternal morbidity and mortality if they were to become pregnant. It's foolhardy to believe that just because these conditions are known to patients or their providers, that it will be impossible for those women to ever become pregnant. Even the best forms of contraception are not perfect. For these women, access to abortions is as critical as access to the emergency room for those with a broken leg, or to a PET scanner for those with cancer. As a family physician who cares for patients throughout their lifespan, including women of reproductive age who become pregnant, having access to abortion providers is critical to making sure that each patient has the ability to receive the right care for their individual and unique circumstances. I'm fortunate to work in a larger practice where access to services is not in jeopardy, at least not for today. But the threat and risk that exists for providers who offer abortion and who need to support women from other states where abortion is now outlawed can quickly impact the availability of these services, as it has in many other parts of the state. Could any of us on this call today imagine driving into or out of this city without dozens of billboards promoting the services of our city's hospitals? Awareness for patients about services that could be helpful is a cornerstone of our healthcare landscape. Even public health messaging such as safe sex and COVID boosting can be found on buses and billboards throughout the city. But no place is safe for reproductive health centers to advertise or promote the availability of these services, even when they are legal, accessible, and potentially life-preserving in certain situations. I encourage this committee to continue to support measures which protect healthcare providers who provide abortion care and those that refer to them. In doing so, we will be protecting maternal health and the families that depend on these women. Thank you for your time and your services today.
Thank you for your testimony. And at this point, I'm going to ask if there are any questions or comments from our colleagues.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Gim, did you have something to say?
Yes, just something brief. I just wanted to
Sure.
thank Dr. DeMarco for, I just wanted to thank again, Dr. DeMarco, I know you're on the floor, and how much this means to you. Thank you so much for testifying, for bringing your professional medical expertise to this conversation that so desperately needs to be guided by it and by patient experiences. So we really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
You're welcome, council member. Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments or questions for the previous panel? Okay, nope. Well, thank you, Dr. DeMarco, for being accommodating. We appreciate that with your schedule. And also, I want to say thank you to Dr. Bettengall and to Ms. Gee. And if we could have the clerk now call forward the next panel, the next member of panel, next two members of panel 2.
Professor David Cohen and Dr. Jagu has been called away for work.
Okay, so we will have Dr. Cohen.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here.
Good morning. Thank you for being here.
My name is David S. Cohen. I'm a professor of law at Drexel University's Thomas R. Klein School of Law. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of these bills. Along with 2 other law professors, Rachel Rebouchet, who's the Dean of Temple Law School, and Greer Donnelly at Pitt Law, I've spent the last year studying the legal issues that would arise if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, which has now happened. 14 states now ban abortion, and the best expert estimates are that a total of about half of the states in the country will ban abortion within a year or 2. These bills prepare Philadelphia for this new reality. Philadelphia cannot change the fact that many states will make abortion illegal. But what you can do with these bills is protect Philadelphia healthcare providers and people who travel here to obtain healthcare from the very real threat that other states pose. What I'm referring to is the threat that people in other states will try to investigate, sue, or prosecute people in Philadelphia for providing reproductive health care to people who travel from anti-abortion states to Philadelphia for lawful care. We know that people are already traveling to Philadelphia for care that our expert abortion providers provide, and that will only increase as the days go on. Other states have not yet tried to impose legal liability or prosecute people here in Philadelphia for the care they provide people for traveling, but we are very close to this reality. Based on the expertise that I've developed with my co-authors, we strongly believe that this risk will intensify in the coming years as states seek to ban abortion not only in their borders, but also when their residents seek abortion care in other places, such as here. These bills take 2 important steps in this regard. Bill 220656 protects medical records privacy so that patient information is not a part of any out-of-state attempts to punish. And Bill 220665 creates a new cause of action protecting people here from bounty-style laws like Texas's SB 8 that are sweeping the nation's anti-abortion states. Your bill is a classic clawback provision. If anyone in Philadelphia faces a judgment under one of these anti-abortion bounty-style laws, they will be able to sue in our courts to get their money back. This new cause of action would discourage anyone from suing someone here under any one of these new laws and is an important way for Philadelphia to fight back against this new type of anti-abortion extremism. These bills are cutting-edge interventions to protect abortion access, abortion providers, and abortion patients here in Philadelphia. They will ensure that the people of Philadelphia, when they are following our state law, as well as the patients they serve, are protected from the risk of prosecution and lawsuits from all over the country that are based on values not shared by Philadelphians. Therefore, I urge you to pass these bills and show the country that Philadelphia is, in these extraordinary times, a leader in protecting reproductive rights and justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If we could have, well, let me ask, are there any additional questions for this witness testifying from the panel? Councilman O has a question. Councilman?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us, Professor. I do have questions, and my question is really concerning your opinion on the jurisdiction of City Council. At least from what I can see, we have jurisdiction and the authority to introduce and pass a bill 220664. That is within, it appears, our jurisdiction. Bill 220656, that appears to be something that is either controlled by the federal government, covered by HIPAA specifically, and otherwise state jurisdiction. And Bill 220665, I'm curious your opinion, because it deals with, it appears to deal with the the procedures of the courts, which is a third branch of government. So while I do understand the great concern over the issues that are being talked about, but how does a city council ordinance actually stand up legally when most of the issues that we're talking about, for example, out of state, someone is in a state that has banned abortion, that's state law. They come into Pennsylvania, that's state law. Whatever arises in any complication of either being physically here or being consulted by a Pennsylvania physician through telehealth, that appears to be state law issues. And so I'm wondering, for example, Philadelphia issues an ordinance. Bristol Township issues a different ordinance. Bucks County has an ordinance. Harrisburg does their own ordinance. Like, do any of these ordinances actually, are they actually legal, or or on those issues, is that something that has to be brought up in the state house, the state legislature, or in Congress? Could you comment on that?
Sure, Councilmember O. I can certainly state that these provisions are consistent with federal law. Federal law leaves space for state and local governments to further protect privacy and further create causes of action that about infringement upon reproductive freedom. I am not an expert on the Philadelphia City Council authority in relation to the Pennsylvania constitutional provisions about what different cities are able to do. I leave that expertise to others in your law department and other experts who may be testifying today. My understanding is that the city can create new causes of action as it affects people who provide services within the city, but I will not state any particular expertise on that. That has just been what has been relayed to me by people who do have more expertise. So if that is a concern of yours, I would strongly encourage you to seek out the expertise of people who have that knowledge in terms of the balance between city authority and state authority in the state of Pennsylvania.
Thank you very much, Professor, and thank you, Chairperson, for allowing me to ask those questions.
Thank you, Councilman. Any additional questions for this witness? Oh, Councilwoman Gauthier.
I know the council member has been asking questions about this, but we also have pretty detailed guidance from the law department that we can send your way, if that is helpful.
Yes, thank you very much. I did ask the law department. I did get some feedback, and it was not that clear to me, but any additional paperwork or information would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure, we're willing to field whatever additional questions you have. Thank you so much.
Super, thank you. And I know that we have some time before the next legislative session. So if we get a chance to answer the councilman's questions before then, that would be great. Okay, any additional questions? Comments? Councilwoman Gauthier, did you have your hand up still?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Gim?
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. As I said, I do think that we have worked very closely with our city law department to ensure that these laws work within our current sphere of legal authority, and have included language to ensure that they're interpreted consistent with federal and state law. This is clearly an evolving legal area as other states push the boundaries around their jurisdiction and their legal authority to reach into our city as well. But we are working diligently to ensure that we are within our current bounds of authority as these laws continue to shift. Our commitment is to continue to evolve our laws as needed. This is a fast-moving area. Legislatures in other parts of the country are moving with equal rapidity, and it is important for us to be responsive and attentive and aware that that things are moving and shifting, and we will continue to make sure that our municipal authority is that we are well within our bounds.
Okay, thank you. Can we have the clerk call the next witness, please? Or the next panel of witnesses?
Tara Murtha, Lindsay Malden, and Mary Ebeling.
Great. And if we can have you all go in that order. If you want to start, Tara, if you could state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Okay, hello everyone. Tara Murtha, Women's Law Project. I'm here today representing WLP to express support for the Reproductive Freedom Platform. Founded in 1974, WLP is a public interest legal organization devoted to defending and advancing gender justice through impact litigation, policy advocacy, and community education. I'm also here speaking as a longtime resident of Philadelphia and as a woman targeted by our state legislature's relentless efforts to interfere with my capacity to obtain reproductive health care in ways that not coincidentally would diminish my ability to engage in public life, like the privilege of speaking here with you all today. It is urgent that local governments protect residents from anti-abortion state overreach. The goal was never to return the issue to the states. As evident by Pennsylvania state lawmakers working to strip our reproductive autonomy rights out of our state constitution via the proposed anti-abortion constitutional amendment, the plan, currently in progress, was always to eliminate our federal rights to empower anti-abortion state lawmakers to extend their reach into our homes, our bodies, our phones, our doctor's offices, our conversations, our online search histories, our friendships, and our private family life. Such efforts, of course, are also happening in other states, threatening to overreach into Philadelphia as people travel here to receive the health care they need. Unfortunately, the sexist ideology that seeks to punish us for our reproductive choices extends into employment, typically by way of pregnancy discrimination, a persistent problem in Pennsylvania. It's illuminating that the same state lawmakers attempting to force us to carry pregnancies against our will are simultaneously enabling our employers to fire us over it by refusing to pass a bill to protect pregnant workers. In the eyes of anti-abortion lawmakers, there is no correct reproductive choice that protects you from harm. Only subordination and oppression for having the capacity for pregnancy at all. Thankfully, like the legislative package we're discussing today, Philadelphia City Council took action in response to the General Assembly leadership's failure and enacted a city ordinance to protect pregnant Pennsylvanians from being forced to choose between their health and a paycheck. WLP strongly supports the Reproductive Rights Fair Practices Bill, which would make it explicit that Philadelphia's anti-discrimination law prevents workplace discrimination against employees for any reproductive health care decision, whether that means seeking abortion care, fertility assistance, or contraception. The Women's Law Project's position is that laws like this shouldn't be needed. Terminating a pregnancy is inherently related to the classification of sex, and the law already prohibits sex discrimination, including discrimination based on pregnancy, childbirth, or a related medical condition. However, if there's one thing we've learned from watching courts eviscerate our rights, it's that the more clearly our rights can be stated in the plain language of the law, the better. We support the whole reproductive freedom platform. Enforcing restrictions and laws that punish and criminalize an extremely common medical procedure requires invasive surveillance that would disproportionately punish and incarcerate Black women and birthing people in communities of color, a bleak reality that would amplify and perpetuate deeply rooted inequities and underscores the need for robust privacy protections. It's also critical to deter the use of anti-abortion vigilante civil lawsuits, which incentivize anti-abortion activists to hunt for friends and neighbors' private reproductive health information in exchange for financial reward. Finally, we support the assembly of a task force focused on preserving our reproductive autonomy and protecting us from the overreaching efforts of anti-abortion state lawmakers around the country and here in the Commonwealth. Thank you to the Councilwoman Gim, Brooks, and Gautier for the invitation and for leading this critical effort to defend our reproductive autonomy and privacy of all Philadelphians amid a ruthless political effort to deprive us of both. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. If we could have the next panelist state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be here today. My name is Lindsay Malden, and I'm the Vice President of Advocacy and Public Policy with Planned Parenthood Southeastern Pennsylvania. I'm also here today representing Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates, the advocacy and policy arm of Planned Parenthood here in the Commonwealth. I want to reiterate that we applaud this effort to protect and expand access to sexual and reproductive health care, including abortion, by the City of Philadelphia. That's because at Planned Parenthood, we know that abortion is health care. We know that it's health care that individuals need and rely on regardless of their political affiliation, religion, sexual orientation, or ethnic background. We know that 1 in 4 individuals will access this care in their lifetime, and that a majority of individuals across the country and in the state of Pennsylvania support abortion remaining legal. It's important to note that before the Supreme Court decision, which overturned Roe and set off a number of bans in other states, abortion providers and patients still faced burdens in providing and receiving abortion care in Pennsylvania. Just because abortion is legal does not mean it's accessible for everyone. 48% of individuals in Pennsylvania live without an abortion provider in their county. Since the Supreme Court decision, our sister affiliates in Western and Central Pennsylvania have seen an influx of patients from other states. Patients from states like West Virginia and Ohio are coming into Pennsylvania to access care in Pittsburgh, where there are only a few clinics available to offer care. Inevitably, we will see patients from those parts of the state start to migrate to the Southeast to access care. Although we believe your zip code shouldn't determine your ability to access health care, and no patient should have to travel should have to undertake burdensome travel to access basic reproductive health care services, we welcome patients from all parts of the country and state at our clinics in Philadelphia and throughout the region. Policies that restrict abortion interfere with the patient and provider relationship and could have implications, like we've heard today, for other health care besides abortion, IVF treatment, miscarriage management, and treatment for ectopic pregnancies. These are all procedures that could be at stake with some of the policies and restrictions we've seen come forward both here in Pennsylvania and in other states. In fact, we've heard horror stories of this already playing out in states that have restricted access to abortion. We fear that this intrusion in the doctor and patient relationship could have impacts on other care like contraception care and care for LGBTQ patients. Laws that protect the privacy of our patients and providers help in dismantling some of the fear that exists around providing and receiving abortion care. And we're thankful to the leadership of the Philadelphia City Council for including these provisions in the Reproductive Freedom Platform. We also know that stigma still exists around abortion care and provision. So at Planned Parenthood, we are excited to see steps taken to ensure that patients cannot be discriminated against for their reproductive health care decisions. Finally, it's important to note that the extreme opposition to abortion denies the fact that these are personal medical decisions. This dialogue erases the humanity of these patients who seek abortion, and abortion stigma present in state and national policies reinforces the false notion that abortion patients and providers do not deserve protection. Because of this pervasive stigma and extremism, we have seen violence at some of our clinics in an effort to restrict our ability to provide care. In August of 2021, we experienced 2 clinic takeovers at Planned Parenthood Southeastern Pennsylvania, simultaneous attacks at our Westchester and Philadelphia locations. Protesters locked themselves in our health centers and stopped care for hours, terrifying patients, providers, and staff. We've also experienced physical violence against some of our volunteer clinic escorts who are just trying to help patients make it to their appointments safely. Though we've worked successfully with the Philadelphia Police Department, district attorneys' offices, and FBI to ensure these attacks won't happen again, our providers and patients operate under a veil of stigma and fear that is not present in any other healthcare setting. This slate of legislation put forward by Philadelphia City Council sends a message to Philadelphians, to abortion providers in the region, and to anyone that needs to come here for care. We trust you to make the decision that's best for you and to access that care safely and without fear. We're thankful for these policies that aim to protect and provide more security for those seeking abortion and other sexual and reproductive health care. We at Planned Parenthood look forward to working alongside City Council, the Mayor's Office, and other reproductive health and justice advocates in Philadelphia to build out what the future of these programs will look like and how we can all best protect and expand access to abortion for those who are most marginalized in our communities. Thank you again for having me today.
Thank you for your testimony. And if we could have the next panelist, please state your name for the record and begin your testimony, and then we'll allow for questions from the council, from the committee. Okay, Mary, please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bass and Councilwomen Gim, Gautier, and Brooks, co-sponsors of the Reproductive Freedom Platform, for inviting me to speak to the elected members. And it is my honor to give testimony today on Bill number 220656, the proposed legislation that protects reproductive health data privacy. My name is Mary Ebling, and I am a professor of sociology at Drexel University and a resident of West Philadelphia. I was asked to speak to you today on the collection and use of reproductive health data by for-profit third parties outside of the healthcare sector and outside of the protections of HIPAA, and how these transactions can seriously harm the most vulnerable Philadelphians. Any resident capable of becoming pregnant who may be seeking reproductive health care in the city. What I'm about to share is my expert testimony and not representative of my employer's position. About a decade ago, I underwent assisted reproductive health care at one of the city's best reproductive health clinics. While my efforts to become pregnant and give birth through IVF failed, I experienced 3 miscarriages, all by the 12th week of pregnancy. I did, in fact, have a baby of sorts, a baby born from the purloined information about the fact that I was trying to get pregnant, gleaned from my phone, my credit card, my loyalty card used at pharmacies, my IP address, and other private sources that were segmented into marketing lists and sold to anyone with a few $100s. In my case, the credit bureau Experian collected and packaged my data into their new parents' marketing database and sold it, along with the data of another 1,200 residents living in West Philadelphia, to third-party companies, all in a bid to get me to buy baby things. I only found out that my health data had been sold when I received a free sample of infant formula in the mail, delivered on the same day that my doctor told me that she could no longer find a heartbeat. Since then, I have dedicated my life to investigating how data brokers buy and sell highly sensitive information about some of the most traumatic and private health events that anyone can experience. Data brokers, companies that aggregate and sell personally identifiable information on almost every resident in the United States to other businesses, make these transactions without the knowledge or consent of the people that they sell data on. It is an industry that is virtually unregulated in the US. Some of the biggest data brokers have names that you may be familiar with, such as Experian, Google, or LexisNexis, which provides personal data for use in anything from criminal investigations to research in healthcare. And others you may not have heard of, such as IQVIA, that provides big pharma with information on doctors who are prescribing, on what doctors are prescribing to their patients, or Axiom, that holds data on 21 million healthcare providers across the US. The council members should know that for those who profit from our health data, all data are considered health data, meaning that these companies collect and sell health data on millions of Americans outside of the protections of federal and state data privacy regulations like HIPAA. From things that Philadelphians do every day, like walking down the street near a Planned Parenthood, through geofencing phones, to purchasing prenatal vitamins at a local CVS, even with cash, by purchasing transactional data, surveillance camera data, or loyalty card data, to surfing the web through collecting browser data that can be linked directly to an individual's IP address. And then through sophisticated analytical techniques, are able to identify an individual in order to make inferences about their health, including their reproductive health-seeking behaviors. Imagine if these intimate data were sold not to marketers, as it was in my case, but to vigilante anti-abortion extremists looking to dox a provider or a person seeking reproductive health care, or an abusive ex tracking down a pregnant ex-partner to cash in on a bounty, or to an out-of-state police officer who purchases data without a warrant. In my case, and for millions of others that can become pregnant, Experian made a guess about my reproductive health. Even if they got it wrong, it was very close to the truth. And they sold it to anyone who had the money to buy it. Information that most consider deeply personal, private, and only to be shared between a patient and her doctor, and that should never be criminalized or be sold. I believe that this proposed legislation is one small step towards protecting the reproductive health data of tens of thousands of Philadelphians from an essentially unregulated reproductive health data marketplace, and could shield some of the most vulnerable Philadelphians, who are our relatives, our friends and neighbors, who are seeking reproductive health services from serious and irreparable harm. I'm grateful to the councilwomen for drafting these bills to protect all Philadelphians' right to health data privacy, and I urge the council to pass these into law, and it has been my honor to speak to the council today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Excellent testimony all around. Councilwoman Gauthier, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Professor Ebeling for sharing her story with us. I'm really sorry that happened to you and that you experienced such a breach of trust and privacy. It's very disturbing and disgusting even. But I also just thank you for sharing such a painful testimony, because that was probably one of the most powerful examples of why this package of legislation is important. So thank you so much for what you've done to make sure that this doesn't happen to other people.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Gim?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Professor Ebeling, again, thank you so much for your testimony. I had two questions. I am curious about how you think that restrictions on the disclosure of healthcare data might have impacted your situation, and how you think meaningful restrictions could help others.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gim, for these questions. I think that obviously, in my case and the case for millions of other patients, HIPAA is not sufficient enough to protecting health data privacy. So I believe that the legislation that you're proposing will go to a point where will go in some direction to kind of fill in those gaps and holes that health data can leak out of and be exposed to, virtually anyone that has a few $100s to buy the information. So I'm hopeful that your legislation, if passed, will help to fill those gaps and holes.
And then also, I know that you've taken a look at how ICE made use of big data to further its aims. Could you just talk a little bit about that and maybe share any parallels with how abortion opponents, including state governments and others, could use data to persecute or harass Philadelphia providers, patients, and those who help them?
Yes. So the ICE case that you're referring to is an instance where Denver, Colorado, which is a sanctuary city, much like Philadelphia is, kind of worked around or sidestepped the sanctuary laws by buying data on every single resident in Denver from LexisNexis in order to target and prosecute individual people that they were trying to target. So, but they exposed the data of every resident. So that was one way that I think those kinds of behaviors are possible in a place like Philadelphia as well, where, let's say an out-of-state police force who is trying to go after a pregnant person that is seeking abortion care here in Philadelphia could conceivably purchase data on a targeted individual to verify or confirm or even find where they're at. In a similar way, not only individuals seeking abortion care, but as well as providers providing care, because there is a whole industry within big data that specifically service healthcare. So they have finely grained, detailed information on every single provider in the United States, no matter what kind of care they provide, but including reproductive health and abortion care. So to me, it's very conceivable that, if marketers can buy my data, so can anti-abortion activists or vigilantes or officers from other districts where abortion is illegal.
Thank you so much for helping clarify that and for emphasizing that this is just as much about us being responsive to changes in, as we said earlier, technology, data collection, surveillance, et cetera. That is a rapidly evolving area. And so our municipalities need to be paying attention to ensure the privacy rights of all people, including those who seek reproductive health care. But I think the basic tenets of this issue extend beyond that. So thank you for helping clarify that. And thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you. It was a true honor. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions? And if not, we'll move on. If we could have the clerk call the last panel to testify.
Chair, may I interrupt? I actually have to leave as previously discussed for other council business. So
yes.
I'd like to be excused and just to note that I'll be voting aye on all bills and any other matters that come up today. And I do just note that I have questions and hopefully they will be answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman O. You did make that clear, and my apologies. I did see your message. I thought you had actually had already left. So, but thank you for clarifying, and you will be noted as an aye on all three bills. So,
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, and if we could have the clerk call forward the last panel to testify today.
Elizabeth Rodriguez, Samia Bristow, Adrian Garasi, Melissa Gerber.
Very good. And if we could start in the order in which you were called. And Elizabeth, I believe you were first. If we could have you state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Rodriguez. Thank you for having me today, dear Council President Clerk and distinguished members of Philadelphia City Council. Again, my name is Elizabeth Rodriguez. I serve as a bilingual patient advocate and community engagement coordinator with the Women's Centers, a group of independent abortion providers with centers in Georgia, Connecticut, New Jersey, and here in Pennsylvania at our Delaware County and Philadelphia Women's Centers. Our Philadelphia Women's Centers is located in the beautiful Chinatown neighborhood between 7th and 8th Arch and Race. We specialize in first and second trimester abortion care, serving 6,000 to 8,000 women, trans men, and gender nonconforming people seeking abortion care each year. Right now, I'm actually taking a break from providing patients with care to talk about the importance of reproductive care with you all. I'm here with you today on behalf of resilient staff of the Philadelphia Women's Centers, who have been providing care despite ongoing stigma, years of harassment from anti-abortion extremists, years of facing anti-abortion laws and restrictions, and up to most recently, a global epidemic. Despite all of that, we are celebrating 50 years of providing abortion care with dignity and respect for Pennsylvanians and others who are traveling outside of their communities to seek care. As abortion providers, we know that abortion has a profound impact in improving people's health and lives and improving their opportunity to determine their own futures. I'm also here on behalf of our patients who already face extreme anti-abortion laws and restrictions that make it harder for them, for Black, BIPOC, and Indigenous communities, LGBTQIA folks, people with disabilities, young folks, people who are looking to make ends meet, and those who live in rural areas who already must navigate expensive and often racist healthcare systems, confront police violence and discrimination, and grapple with economic insecurity and other challenges. Abortion is a safe and common procedure, and you should be able to get abortion care when you need it. Unfortunately, misinformation about abortion providers and efforts to shame people who need abortions further perpetuates violence. The Philadelphia Women's Center staff and our patients rely on community support networks such as abortion funds and practical support volunteers, but especially also a group of robust clinic escort volunteers. Clinic escorts make a team of indispensable volunteers whose role is to welcome patients and guests to our centers and make parking and entry swift. Oftentimes, patient escorts are the first smiling faces of our patients encounter, especially when sidewalk bullies and protesters are present. Oftentimes, our very own patients are eager to give back by becoming patient escorts themselves due to the harassment they experience when simply looking to access their healthcare facility. Our vision for people seeking abortion care is clear. Everyone who needs abortion care should be able to get it without being shamed, harassed, punished, or going broke. We strongly encourage you to stand with us and all those who rely on us for abortion care by passing bills 220656, 220664, and 220665 to ensure that everyone who lives in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia and those who are traveling to seek care with us are able to receive full range of reproductive health care. And that is regardless of regardless of their race, ethnicity, and immigration status. Thank you.
And thank you for your testimony today. Our next panelist, Samaya Bristow. Please state your name, Bristow. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Samia Bristow, and I'm the Associate Vice President of Programs at Maternity Care Coalition. Today, for the last 40 years, Maternity Care Coalition has been an advocate for the well-being of birthing people and small children. MCC believes in an equitable and just future for all families and is committed to challenging the structures that create barriers to equity. I'm honored to speak on behalf of MCC in favor of this package of bills that protect our reproductive rights. As an organization, MCC views abortion in the context of public health and more specifically maternal and child health. It is one of many reproductive health services that should be safe and accessible to all pregnant and parenting families. While abortion is still legal in Pennsylvania, we anticipate continued barriers to access and the environment for those providing and seeking abortions may become increasingly volatile. Legislation like the bills proposed are crucial as things continue to unfold. Earlier this year, MCC staff and the communities we serve were shaken to our core when we watched the Supreme Court take away the constitutional right to abortion. Our advocates who work directly with families have expressed a sense of anxiety about the lack of federal protection for abortion access. Overwhelmingly, they are concerned for the ongoing safety of their clients, for their health, and their reproductive autonomy. Attacks on abortion and reproductive health care access are deeply connected to maternal and child health outcomes. Recently, scholars at the University of Colorado published a report demonstrating the interconnectedness of reproductive health and maternal child health. Scholars projected an increase of approximately 14% in the maternal mortality rate in states where abortion is banned or access is severely restricted. Their research found that Black women would be most significantly impacted. Unwanted pregnancies are also associated with preterm birth and low birth weight, which together are a leading cause of infant mortality. This package of reproductive rights bills moves the city closer to ensuring the protection and empowerment of Philadelphians seeking reproductive care. Furthermore, it honors the expertise that every parent has in their own experience and their right to set goals for themselves and their family and seek success through their own definitions and methods, free from value judgments and expectations established in systematically and equitable institutions. MCC stands with members of City Council in our continued effort to create a landscape of bold, holistic, and intersectional policy responses to protect our reproductive freedom. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I believe we have Adrian next.
Good afternoon.
Adrian, please state your name for the
Hi.
record and proceed.
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Bass, Council Members Gim, Brooks, Gautier, and the committee members for having me. My name is Adrienne Garashi, and I'm a reproductive health lawyer and researcher at the Center for Public Health Law Research at Temple University. I'm also a board member of the Abortion Liberation Fund of Pennsylvania and a board member of the ACLU of Pennsylvania. I'm testifying on behalf of ACLU-PA in support of the protections in Bill number 220656 and 220665. As someone who studied the impact of abortion restrictions in the US over the past 6 years, the rapid legal developments in the wake of Dobbs have already devastated abortion care across the nation. Millions of pregnant, capable individuals lost abortion access nearly overnight as providers were forced to stop caring for their patients. As states like Texas and Oklahoma continue to increasingly criminalize essential reproductive health care, abortion providers, helpers, and patients are in urgent need of legal protection. The chilling effect of abortion criminalization and so-called bounty hunter laws such as Texas SB 8 has terrorized the abortion providing and supporting community. The legal risk that providers and helpers, including abortion funds and practical support networks, potentially face by providing care to out-of-state abortion seekers is ambiguous and threatens the availability of these essential services to those who need it most. Additionally, individuals seeking reproductive health care may face risk of harassment, investigation, and prosecution when the privacy of their personal health information is unprotected from abusive litigation and punishment. Not only do these legal risks severely limit access to abortion, they also impact the provision of miscarriage and pregnancy-related care and access to contraceptive services, including emergency contraception. After attending a major public health conference just this past week, the majority of my conversations with providers, healthcare workers, researchers, and my other colleagues centered on the fears and questions related to navigating this post-Roe legal landscape. To be clear, this climate of fear and uncertainty is absolutely part of the intent of such laws passed by politicians who are violently anti-abortion and anti-public health. Maintaining a safe environment for people to provide and access essential reproductive health services is a public health and policy matter for all levels of government to engage in. As we see states hostile to abortion emboldened in their attacks, it is critical that other states and localities respond just as forcefully to strengthen and expand access. In an effort to address the overreach of state laws that seek to control our bodies and reproductive autonomy, at least 15 states have enacted such shield laws in order to protect providers, helpers, and patients from out-of-state liability and prosecution, and a number of cities have also followed suit. Philadelphia's proposed legislation is a proactive and welcome step forward in safeguarding abortion access by attempting to mitigate the uncertain legal risks surrounding reproductive health care and protecting the reproductive health privacy of patients, providers, and helpers. The ACLU of Pennsylvania strongly supports the Reproductive Freedom Platform and urges council members to do the same. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And I believe we have one final panelist, Melissa Weiler Gerber. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Bass, and council members and sponsors, Gim, Gautier, and Brooks, and all members of council and hearing attendees for investing your time today and hearing more about the critical need to protect abortion access. My name is Melissa Weiler Gerber, and I'm the president and CEO of Access Matters, which is a public health nonprofit based here in Philadelphia with a mission to protect, expand, and enhance equitable access to sexual and reproductive health care and information for all people. We appreciate the opportunity to speak before council in support of the ordinances that comprise the Reproductive Rights Platform, designed to protect abortion rights, access to abortion care, and patient privacy in Philadelphia. And we extend our thanks to council members for their recent and ongoing work to work in solidarity with advocates and healthcare providers to protect and expand access to sexual and reproductive health care. Access Matters leads the Title X family planning program in Southeastern PA, and for 50 years has focused on increasing access to sexual and reproductive health with an emphasis on health equity. We recognize the deep connection between access to these unique healthcare services and overall health for people, families, and for all of our communities. The Council's Reproductive Rights Platform also recognizes this critical relationship. As we acknowledge the ongoing state-level threats already impacting access to abortion care here and around the country, we want to applaud Council's efforts to take action right here at the local level to protect the rights of Philadelphians and those who seek abortion care here. The Supreme Court's June 24 decision to overturn Roe v. Wade is having devastating real-life consequences for people and communities across the country. And providers in Pennsylvania are already feeling the impact of an influx of people from other states seeking care here because of restrictions at home. We know the effects of abortion bans and restrictions fall hardest on people who already face significant barriers to care, including people with low incomes, young people, LGBTQAI+ people, and Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. And we know that in addition to their devastating impact on abortion care itself, restrictions on abortion access also interfere with miscarriage management, treatment for life-threatening ectopic pregnancies, and reproductive technologies such as in vitro fertilization. We're also seeing state abortion restrictions jeopardize access to procedures and medications commonly used in miscarriage management, cancer treatment, and chronic disease management, risking people's lives or putting them at risk for serious medical complications. We also know these efforts stand to impact access to other healthcare services, such as long-acting reversible contraception, including IUDs. Access Matters is already experiencing an increase in calls to our hotline related to tubal ligations and vasectomies, and our providers are reporting increased calls seeking reproductive health services and an increased interest in long-acting reversible contraception. These trends are expected to continue. Due to systemic inequities that exist across the healthcare system, people who rely on publicly funded family planning providers are also the people who will be disproportionately impacted by abortion bans. So we know in this moment that Access Matters and the family planning providers in our network play an even more critical role as a safe and trusted source of accurate healthcare and information for all patients. While abortion remains legal in Pennsylvania today, and we are certainly grateful for the election earlier this week of a governor who has pledged to continue Governor Wolf's commitment to veto legislative attempts to restrict it, the future of abortion access remains tenuous due to partisan efforts to amend our state constitution to take away Pennsylvania's right to abortion care. Thus, it is more important than ever that we explore every mechanism at every level of power to protect access to abortion care. We are grateful that our city council in Philadelphia is doing just that our council, from the moment of the Supreme Court's dangerous and destructive trampling on 50 years of established law, eradicating our human right to bodily autonomy in this most personal of decisions, that our city council reached out to advocates and providers to look for every way to make clear to Philadelphians and the world that Philly was and will be a safe place, is and will be a safe place for those in need of abortion care. We are here today in solidarity, in support of providers and clients throughout our region and our Commonwealth, with a firm commitment to continue to fight so that all reproductive health care options, including abortion care, are accessible to all who seek them. And we appreciate your support of the reproductive rights platform. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your testimony as well. This was really very informative, a great hearing, so much information. I hope that we had a lot of viewers today that were really taking in all of this information. Are there any questions or comments from the members of the committee? No? Okay. Let me ask if, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Gim?
Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to piggyback, Madam Chair, on your comments that I think Philadelphia is so fortunate to have such a fierce crew of advocates who have been leading and who absolutely help form the basis of this legislative package. We have been working together since I first came onto City Council, doing annual dialogues, making sure that our providers are protected, and when there are issues or problems, making sure that especially the women of City Council are engaged and active and most importantly, responsive. This package of bills would not be possible without the witnesses who testified today, who represent collectively not only their patients and members, but also, the hundreds of thousands of Philadelphians who rely on advocates like them to really be forward-thinking, to be bold and courageous, to break new ground when needed, and to be unapologetic in defending the rights of all of our Philadelphia residents. So I just wanted to add my voice to yours, Madam Chair, and just express my gratitude and thanks for our witnesses' brilliance and integrity and commitment to this platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And so that being said, well, we're going to move into actually, let me ask a question first. If we have anyone else, Madam Clerk, who is here to testify or offer comments.
There are no more witnesses or panelists.
Okay. Okay, there being no further witnesses or no further questions from members of the committee and no further witnesses to testify on these bills, I will ask once again if there's anyone else present in this hearing whose name we have failed to call and that wishes to offer testimony on any of the bills being considered today. Don't see anyone. And so in hearing none, I want to thank all the panels and witnesses. I want to thank all of the panels and witnesses for their participation on the legislation today. I want to remind the public that we will be moving to a public meeting to vote on bill numbers 220-656, 220-664, and 220-665, which were heard by this committee today. And after consideration of these bills in public meeting, we will return to a public hearing to hear, actually, we are not going to return to a public hearing to hear testimony on resolution 220858. It is going to be held. Okay, and so we'll now go into a recess for this hearing and go into a public meeting to consider the actions to be taken on the three bills before this committee today. So I'm going to ask for any guests who were here to testify to please disconnect at this time. All right, and I'm going to ask, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will indicate that you are present when your name is called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so that your image will be displayed on screen when you speak. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Gum,
I am present.
Councilmember Thomas,
Good afternoon, I'm present.
Councilmember Brooks,
Good afternoon, I'm present.
Councilmember Driscoll,
I'm present. It was a great discussion this morning.
and Madam Chair Bass.
Thank you, and of course, I am still present. Okay, and a quorum of committee members is present. The chair recognizes, oh, and actually, I do want to also recognize the council member O, who was here, who had to leave early for council business, but who did state that he will be voting aye on all bills. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Kim for a motion on the amendment to bill number 220656.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 220656. I offer an amendment to bill number 220656. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to bill number 220656 be approved.
Can we get a second? All right, properly seconded by Councilwoman Brooks. The chair notes, and it's been moved and properly seconded, that the amendment to bill number 220656 be approved. All those in favor of this motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 220656 has been approved. And the chair now recognizes Councilmember Kim for a motion on bill number 220656 as amended.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 220656 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Thank you. The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Brooks seconded the motion. It's been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220656 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of this motion will signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Okay, the ayes have it and the motion carries. And the chair recognizes Councilmember Brooks for a motion on the amendment to bill number 220664.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 220664. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all the members on the committee. I move that amendment to bill number 220664 be approved.
Second.
Chair notes for the record that Councilmember Kim seconds the motion. It's been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 220664 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 220664 has been approved. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Brooks for a motion on bill number 220664 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 220664 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Gim seconds the motion. It's been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220664 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. And the chair now recognizes Councilmember Well, actually, Councilmember Gim, can you fill in for Councilman O?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Hold on.
Do you have a script?
One moment.
Sure, no problem. Councilmember? You're offering the amendment on behalf of Councilman O for
Yes.
220665.
Yes, I offer an amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair. I offer an amendment to bill number 220665.
Mm-hmm.
A copy of this amendment has been distributed to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to bill number 220665 be approved.
Second.
Chair notes for the record that Councilmember Brooks seconds the motion. It's been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 220665 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the amendment to bill number 220665 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilmember Gim for a motion on bill number 220665 as amended.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I move that bill number 220665 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at our next session of council.
Second.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Brooks seconds the motion, and it has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 220665 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. That will conclude our public meeting on bills number 220656, 220664, and 220665. Resolution number 220858 is being held to the call of the chair, and thank you very much for your attendance in today's very important hearing. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to Tasha and Sydney.
Thank you all. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.